Good morning, Virgo. There's convergence happening in real time as you're hearing these words. Forces aligning, circumstances crystallizing, events moving toward manifestation point that sits mere hours away from current moment. And what crosses that threshold from potential into actual will fundamentally shift something in your reality, will create ripple effects you'll be navigating for days or weeks beyond the initial impact, will mark clear before and after in how you understand your situation, your relationships, your trajectory forward. This isn't vague future possibility requiring patient waiting. Isn't distant development you have weeks to prepare for. Isn't gradual unfolding giving you time to adjust incrementally. This is imminent eruption, immediate manifestation, compressed timeline, where what's been building in invisible dimensions suddenly, forcefully, undeniably breaks through into visible reality, demanding your attention, requiring your response, creating conditions you can't ignore or postpone dealing with, because the thing happening won't allow you to stay passive, won't permit you to remain observer, will pull you into active participation whether you feel ready or not. And the urgency that frames this message, that's not dramatization designed to create artificial anxiety. That's accurate reflection of temporal compression happening around specific event or revelation or encounter. That's honest acknowledgement that hours matter here, that the window between now and manifestation is narrow enough, that preparation time is limited, is less than Heshone. Zero hash is greater than. That whatever internal readying you need to do, whatever practical arrangements you need to make, whatever emotional grounding you need to establish needs to happen quickly, because the thing approaching isn't asking permission about timing, isn't checking if you're ready, is simply arriving on its own schedule that happens to be measured in hours rather than days or weeks. In the particular intensity of events that compress into tight time frames, there's both danger and opportunity, both threat and gift, depending entirely on how you meet what's coming. Whether you meet it conscious or unconscious, prepared or scrambling, grounded or reactive, clear about your values and boundaries, or confused and easily swayed by pressure of the moment. The hours between now and manifestation are precious, not for obsessive planning, but for centering yourself, for remembering who you are and what you stand for getting clear about what you will and won't accept, so that when the thing happens, you're responding from your truth rather than just reacting from your conditioning or your fear. Let me illuminate what might be gathering in these final hours before breakthrough. In the mechanics of rapid manifestation, where something moves from invisible to visible in compressed time frame, certain signatures appear consistently. Communication that's been delayed suddenly releases. Message someone's been drafting for days or weeks finally gets sent. Conversation someone's been avoiding finally gets initiated. Confession someone's been holding finally gets spoken, because internal pressure or external deadline or cosmic timing makes continued delay impossible, makes speaking the only option that relieves the building tension. Your next few hours might involve exactly this kind of breakthrough communication. Phone call that changes everything, text that reveals what's been hidden, email that announces what's been decided, in person conversation that finally addresses what's been avoided. And the content whether it's confession or decision or revelation or invitation, will carry enough weight that your immediate response matters, that what you say or don't say in those first moments shapes what happens next, shapes whether opportunity opens wider or closes completely, shapes whether relationship deepens or ends, shapes whether possibility becomes reality or remains forever, might have been. Watch for signs that communication is imminent. If you feel pulled to check your phone more than usual, if specific person keeps entering your thoughts without clear trigger, if you have sense of anticipation without knowing what you're anticipating. These internal signals often precede external contact by hours or minutes. Your system picking up energetic broadcast before actual message arrives, preparing you subconsciously for impact your conscious mind hasn't identified yet. Mm. Trust these subtle knowings. Let them alert you without alarming you. Let them prepare you without making you anxious. Let them sharpen your awareness without making you hypervigilant. Some imminent events are encounters rather than communications. Crossing paths with someone significant, being in right place at right time for meeting that catalyzes new direction, stumbling into synchronicity that feels too perfect to be random is less than has hone. Zero hash is greater than running into person you've been thinking about or person who has solution to problem you've been wrestling with or person who becomes catalyst for transformation you didn't know you were ready for, but apparently the universe knows you're ready for, which is why the encounter is being orchestrated in these specific hours. You might be heading toward exactly this kind of destined meeting where your schedule or their schedule or both schedules align in ways that weren't planned but feel planned, where location or timing or circumstance creates intersection that wouldn't exist if any variable were slightly different. And the person you meet or re meet might be romantic possibility, professional connection, spiritual teacher, or simply mirror who reflects something you need to see about yourself. But regardless of their specific role, the encounter will matter, will shift something, will plant seed that grows into significant development over coming weeks and months, even if initial meeting seems brief or casual or unremarkable until you look back later and recognize it as turning point. Still others are internal breakthroughs rather than external events. Realization hitting with force that reorganizes your entire understanding, clarity arriving that makes decision you've been postponing suddenly obvious, courage materializing that lets you take action. You've been avoiding shift in consciousness that happens an instant but changes everything that follows. Because once you see what you see, you can't unsee it. Once you know what you can't unknow it. Once you recognize pattern or truth or choice, you can't go back to unconsciousness about it. Can only move forward from new understanding that demands new choices aligned with new clarity. This reflection invites you to consider which type of imminent breakthrough, communication, encounter, or realization feels most aligned with your current situation. Let me clarify what few hours specifically indicates about the compressed timeline you're operating within. Few hours means this isn't tomorrow, isn't next week, isn't measured in days. This is today, this is soon, this is time frame where you're still in preparation phase, but preparation phase is ending shortly, where what's coming is close enough to smell, close enough to feel its approach, close enough that you should be doing whatever centering or preparing or clearing you need to do, because window for advanced readiness is closing rapidly. Because once the thing manifests, you're in response mode rather than preparation mode. You're handling what is rather than anticipating what might be. In the urgency of hours rather than days, there's call to immediate action, not frantic scrambling, but focused intention. Getting yourself into optimal state to meet whatever's coming, which might mean meditation or prayer or journaling, might mean calling trusted friend, might mean canceling less important plans to create space for more important development, might mean simply sitting quietly and getting centered in your body, in your breath, in your knowing about who you are and what matters to you. The preparation isn't about controlling outcome, it's about showing up for outcome as best version of yourself rather than scattered, anxious, reactive version. It's essential you don't waste these precious hours obsessing about what might happen, catastrophizing about worst case scenarios, spiraling into anxiety that depletes energy you'll need when the thing actually occurs. Use the hours wisely, not by trying to predict unpredictable or control uncontrollable, but by strengthening your center, by remembering your resilience, by trusting that you've handled everything life has thrown at you before this, and you'll handle this too. By releasing attachment to specific outcome in favor of faith that whatever happens is somehow serving your evolution, even if evolution is uncomfortable, even if growth requires grief or loss or difficult transition. Some people hearing about imminent development immediately try to force clarity about specifics, analyzing every possibility, trying to determine exact nature of what's coming so they can prepare perfect response. But this approach usually creates more anxiety than actual readiness because you're spending energy on imagined scenarios when you could be gathering energy for actual scenario. Because you're rehearsing responses to situations that might never occur while not staying present enough to respond authentically to situation that actually unfolds, which rarely matches your mental rehearsals anyway, because reality is always more complex and more nuanced than imagination. You might be tempted toward exactly this anxious over preparation, trying to script how you'll respond to confession you think might come, or rejection you fear might arrive, or opportunity you hope might present. But better approach is staying flexible, staying present, staying grounded in your values rather than attached to particular outcome. Trusting that when moment arrives, you'll know what to say, you'll know what to do. You'll access wisdom and courage and clarity that you can't access through advanced planning. But that emerges naturally when you're actually in the moment rather than stuck in your head imagining the moment. This reflection invites you to consider what would help you feel most centered and prepared without knowing exact nature of what's approaching. Let me address what the fire emojis suggest about intensity and transformation. Fire destroys and purifies, consumes what no longer serves, and clears ground for new growth, burns away dead wood that would prevent forest from regenerating. And what's coming in these next hours carries that quality of burning, that intensity of transformation that doesn't ask gentle permission, that arrives with force and heat, that creates change you can't moderate or control once it begins, that demands you surrender to the process rather than trying to manage every detail. The fire isn't necessarily bad. Fire is natural force that serves necessary function. But fire is uncomfortable. Fire is uncontrollable once ignited. Fire transforms completely rather than adjusting minimally, and whatever's arriving in next hours will have that transformative burning quality that destroys old form so new form can emerge. In the alchemy of fire transformation, what burns away is often what you were clinging to, what you thought you needed but actually was preventing your evolution. What felt like safety but was actually cage, what looked like stability but was actually stagnation. The burning hurts because attachment hurts when what we're attached to gets taken, hurts because identity shifts when structures we built identity around get demolished, hurts because uncertainty replaces false certainty. But on the other side of burning, there's clarity that wasn't possible while you were still surrounded by what needed to burn. There's freedom that wasn't available while you were still invested in what needed to release. There's space for new growth that couldn't happen while old growth was taking all the light and nutrients. It's critical you trust the burning if burning is what's coming. Trust that what's being destroyed needed destroying. Trust that loss is making room for gain, even if you can't see the gain yet through the smoke and heat. Trust that transformation serves you, even when transformation terrifies you. Trust that you're strong enough to survive the fire and emerge from it changed in ways that ultimately serve your highest good. Even if highest good looks nothing like what you thought you wanted, even if the path forward becomes unclear because the map you were following just burned, even if you have to rebuild from ground up because the structure you were living in is now ash. Some fire transformations are relationship endings or major shifts, breakup that happens suddenly, confession that changes everything, betrayal that surfaces, truth that can't be ignored once spoken, and these burn because relationships are where we invest so much of ourselves, where we build identity around being partner or friend or family member to specific person. And when that relationship burns, part of our identity burns with it. Part of our future as we imagined it burns. Part of our sense of stability and security burns. The fire is excruciating. But what emerges from ash is often a version of ourselves that's more authentic, more boundaried, more clear about what we actually need rather than what we thought we were supposed to want, more whole, even though we feel shattered. You might be hours away from exactly this kind of relationship fire conversation that ends things or transforms them so completely that ending would have been simpler is less than hash zero. 5 hashes greater than. Revelation that makes continuing impossible or makes continuing require complete renegotiation of terms. Moment where what's been breaking finally breaks all the way through, where what's been dying finally dies completely, so something new can be born from the death. Ooh, let it burn if it needs to burn. Let it end if it needs to end. Let it transform if transformation is what's required. And trust that you'll build something better from the ashes, even though right now you can't imagine anything better than what you're losing. This reflection invites you to consider, if fire transformation is coming, what are you most afraid of losing, and can you trust that losing it might ultimately serve you? Let me speak to what you should actually do in these remaining hours before the event. Ground yourself in your body, because whatever's coming will be easier to navigate from embodied presence than from anxious mind. Breathe deeply and deliberately. Feel your feet on floor. Notice sensations in your belly and chest and throat. Let your awareness drop from spinning thoughts into physical reality, into here and now rather than imagined future. Your body knows how to handle stress, knows how to regulate, knows how to find equilibrium, but it can only do that work if you're actually in your body rather than dissociated into worry about what might happen. In the power of somatic presence, you access resources that thinking alone can't access. You tap into instinct and intuition that get drowned out by mental chatter. You connect with resilience that lives in your cells from every previous difficulty you've survived. You remember on level deeper than words that you've been here before, in moments that felt impossible, and you survived them. You are here now as living proof that you can handle hard things, which means you can handle this hard thing too, whatever this is. It's important you clear your schedule if possible, cancel non essential commitments, create buffer around the hours where manifestation is likely, so that when the thing happens, you have space to respond, space to feel, space to integrate, rather than having to stuff your reaction and pretend you're fine because you have a meeting in 20 minutes or obligation you can't postpone. Give yourself the gift of space, the permission to be whatever you need to be, the freedom to respond authentically rather than having to perform normalcy while internally processing earthquake. Some situations require you to have a support person on standby, friend or family member who knows something significant might happen and who's available to talk or sit with you if needed. Not to manage your response, but to witness it. Not to fix anything, but to hold space while you feel what needs feeling. Not to tell you what to do, but to remind you that you're not alone in whatever this is, that you have people who care, who see you, who'll be there, regardless of what unfolds. You might need to arrange exactly this kind of support before the hours run out. Quick text to trusted person, letting them know something's happening, asking if they could be available later, giving yourself a safety net of connection rather than facing potential intensity completely alone. Because some moments are too big to process solo, some impacts need witness, some transformations require we let ourselves be held even as everything we've been holding on to burns or breaks or transforms beyond recognition. This reflection invites you to consider what practical and emotional preparation would most serve you in the hours remaining before manifestation. Urgent, this is going to happen in few hours. The timeline is compressed, the manifestation is imminent, the window for preparation is closing rapidly. What's been building in invisible dimensions is about to break through into visible reality. What's been forming is about to take shape. What's been approaching is about to arrive. And when it does, when the thing happens, your readiness or unreadiness will determine how smoothly you navigate the impact, how quickly you find your center again, how much the transformation serves you versus how much it just traumatizes you. And your work in these remaining hours is centering, grounding, trusting, preparing yourself not for specific outcome, but for being present to whatever outcome actually occurs. Strengthening your foundation so you can bend without breaking, clearing space, so you can respond rather than just react. Remembering who you are beneath whatever identity is about to be challenged or changed or completely transformed by what's coming. May you meet the imminent with presence rather than panic. May you trust your capacity to handle whatever arrives. May you stay grounded, even as ground shifts beneath you. May you recognize transformation as gift, even when gift arrives wrapped in fire. The hours are counting down. The thing is approaching. Your readiness matters, but you're stronger than what's coming, always. Remember this. Imminent doesn't mean unprepared for. Compressed timeline doesn't mean you can't handle it. Urgency doesn't mean panic is appropriate. Response is less than #0. 5 hash is greater than means you need to focus, need to center, need to trust yourself, need to remember that you've been through hard things before and you're still here, still standing, still capable of meeting whatever life brings with courage and grace, even when you don't feel courageous or graceful. The thing happening in few hours will be significant, yes, will be intense, yes, will be transformative, yes, but you will meet it, you will survive it, you will eventually understand it as necessary part of your journey, even if right now it just feels like chaos approaching. Even if you can't see the purpose yet, even if the only thing you can do is breathe and trust and stay as present as possible while the imminent becomes actual, while the approaching becomes arrived, while the few hours run out and the thing finally, inevitably, powerfully happens. Few hours remaining. Use them wisely. Stay centered. You've got this.